Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
You're watching Now Let's Review, and we're going to be reviewing the Vanpowers UrbanGlide-Ultra next on Now Let's Review. All right, so I think we came up with a good name for this right off the bat. I think I want to call it the Relaxed Road Bike.
I would say premium relaxed road bike. And we're going to get into why we're going to call it that as we go through this review.
Yeah, let's do the stats first. All right, so as you can see, it's a step-through frame, and that's really cool. Vanpowers claims that it's a 380 millimeter step-through height, which they say is the industry leading for low step-throughs. And here's why I think you should consider a step-through if you've never really experienced this kind of bike. It used to be that you couldn't make a bike like this because you needed this bar to hold everything together. But as you can see, this is massive here because of the motor, and so you don't need it. I love not having to have this bar here. It's just so nice when you step off the bike at a stop sign that you're now just fine to do that.
And what this allows you to do is to set the height of the seat properly. Because I see so many people all the time, and me included, they don't want to set this to the proper height because then your feet are like barely touching the ground. So when you come to a stop, it's usually like, oh, I might fall over. With a step through like this, your body can be right here when you stop the bike. So you can hop off and then just kind of scoot your butt up onto it when you ride off.
And I'm gonna push back on you, which is I like to sit upright as possible. I don't like to have my butt in the air, and I know you have to do that to get the best ergonomics, but with an e-bike, I feel like you can choose if you want to be more relaxed like me, or if you want to be like more power guy.
Yeah, but the pedaling on this bike is so good, and we're gonna get into that now.
So this bike comes in two sizes. What you're seeing here is the large size, and that fits riders who are 5'7" to 6'3". Actually, we've seen riders who are like 6'5" and they ride it just fine, so I feel like you can be taller. There's the small size bike, which would go from 5'1" to 5'9", so keep that in mind when you're buying it. Now there's two colors to choose from. There's the gunmetal blue, which we have here, and there's this red that you're seeing on screen here. I think that red's just too red, but I guess you get noticed.
I would say with this color, I mean, it's nice. There's quite a bit of speckle in there. So it gives it, you know, kind of a car-ish look. I've been more of a fan of the matte bikes myself, where it has that matte finish. This is just glossy. I feel like it's gonna get all scratched up.
I like it a lot. I also just want to point out while we're here on the finish and stuff that the welds are all not noticeable here anywhere until you get way deep over there, which is very normal. Now, I was surprised this comes with a 6-year warranty. I'm used to seeing, if you're lucky, 1 or 2. 25 parts are covered under the 6-year warranty. That's really cool. And Vanpowers has 14-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week online phone assistance. So if you have questions or you need to order a part, it seems like they are available for you, which is another nice feature. All right, so the big difference in this bike, you may be wondering why, so let's just talk price, $24.99. They have different versions of this bike, but this is the Ultra, this is the high end. The reason for that is this. Explain why.
This right here is a mid-drive motor. This means that the motor power is being generated at the crank. So this is where you pedal the bike, right? And then it goes through the chain, and then it goes through the gear set. And so you're actually gearing the motor. With basically every hub drive motor, you are stuck with one gear. So imagine, you know, driving your car in 3rd gear. You're not gonna start that well, and once you get up to highway speeds, it's not gonna be that great. This allows you to change gears, and you have 9 gears to choose from. So not only do, you know, just like a normal bike, you pedaling, you get 9 gears to choose from, but also the motor gets to help you through those 9 gears.
And now let's talk about the pedal assist part, because we've learned before, right? There's torque pedal assist, and then there's cadence. This is torque, which is great. It's the good kind.
It's the best kind.
But what's nice is that it's right here at the motor, so it does feel very, I would call it buttery smooth. It's 500 watts, and you might be like, 500 watts isn't a lot. But when you put it at the mid motor, I would say it's almost like a 2X. So I would almost think of it like as 1,000 watts or even more, because it's just giving you way more, it's so much more efficient that it's giving you so much power. We've had mid motors with like 250 watts, which are fine. 500 watts is amazing.
Well, and think about it like this. You're getting 500 watts here, which when you gear it down to gear 1 gives you a ton of torque, which can take you up really steep hills. And then when you take it up to gear 9, that's gonna help you with the top end speed. You're putting that 500 watts right where you need it. Again, with hub drive motors, the other kind of, normally the cheaper kind of e-bike, you have 1 gear and they have to just pick the gear. So it's either really torquey, whoa, this thing goes boom, or they have to put it at the top end, which means that you kind of start off slow and then you're like, oh, I'm going fast.
But you get better efficiency.
Right.
This way you decide.
And you get that efficiency throughout the whole time.
So let's talk about the battery. It's integrated into the frame. It's a 48-volt LG 690 watt-hour battery, and I like that it is UL listed. Underwriters Laboratories listed. That means that they have tested it, and so it is safer than your typical, we didn't test it battery.
Yeah, that can be a big deal for people who really care about that sort of thing. The other thing is that this gives you a 70-mile range. And you might be going, how does 690 watts give you a 70-mile range? Well, it's because you're gonna be pedaling the whole time. And the torque sensing really helps with that. You're gonna have no ghost pedaling. So again, the torque sensing down here means that you are always going to be putting in some power. And I'm assuming that that 70 miles is going to be on level 1 pedal assist, which is actually quite good.
Yeah. Comes with a 4-amp charger, so you can charge this battery from 0 to 100% in about 3.5 hours, which is really good. And you said it has a momentary power switch? What is that?
So if you look down here, you'll notice that there's a button. And you might think that to turn it on, you press the button, and then to turn it off, you press the button. But in fact, if you notice, you just press the button and it doesn't click in, there's no light that turns on or off. What this is actually really smart, and I haven't seen this on basically any e-bike. So if you just walk up to this bike and you press the power button, it's not going to turn on. Because the battery is not connected. You have to come and just touch the switch. And what that does is going to connect the battery for a certain period of time. It's basically charging a capacitor. Once the capacitor dies, then it disconnects, which means that the battery is not going to be left on. If you switch it on and just leave it and walk away, it is going to shut itself off within a reasonable span of time, which means that your battery isn't going to die.
It's got front fork suspension, 80 millimeters, and then it has a seat post suspension of 30 millimeters. I think the front is great, but the seat post to me is like more of a gimmick. When you do hit a bump, it's so stiff, it just feels like nothing's being suspended.
Yeah, it's not smooth. It feels kind of jerky, which is not what you want in suspension. You want it to feel really smooth. I mean, they spent some money on the Zoom suspension and the Zoom seat post suspension, but yeah, the seat post, I mean, you just sit on it and then it goes like gunk. But then when you're going over bumps and stuff, I didn't really notice much.
And this is why I'm using the word relaxed road bike.
Yeah.
It has 27.5 2.2 inch tires, so it's a nice go-between thin tire and fat tire, which is nice, and that's again why I think this is really well suited for bike paths, but not really anything off-road. There is a quick release front wheel, so that's nice if you're locking it up and you're in a place where you want to take the wheel off and lock it up as well. Metal fenders, very nice feature. Very well made. It has Tektro hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors on front and back, and the hydraulic part really feels nice. It has 9-speed micro shift, which is the brand, gears, and so that's really nice. You're getting more, usually you get like 7, so here you get 9.
And this is a premium gear set, so you're paying for it.
All right, so a little misleading thing here on the website. It says it has a braking tail light. That to me would mean that when you pull the brakes, you would get brake lights, but you don't. It's just tail light on all the time. That's good for visibility, but it doesn't tell the people behind you that you're braking. So just be aware of that. There's no braking tail light.
Yeah, it's only when the lights are on that you get the tail light. It does have a reflector, so that's good. But yeah, I mean, we've had a lot cheaper e-bikes where you hit the brakes, it turns on the tail light or it flashes or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of a missed opportunity in my opinion.
Front headlight is a headlight. It's nothing special, but it is nice and bright. Let's talk about the weight. Putting this thing on the bike rack today, I was like, oh, this won't weigh much. And then it weighs 70.5 pounds, so that is 32 kilograms.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. I'm like, where's all the weight?
I think it's the frame.
Yeah.
So I think by making it step through, and I don't know what else, they had to really beef something up. I think it's mainly this big tube here with the batteries in it. 70 pounds is pretty heavy, even for some like fat tire e-bikes. It's in that range, so it's very deceiving. This bike looks like it weighs maybe 40 pounds.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to just like put it on your shoulder and carry it up the stairs.
Right.
So it has adjustable handlebar height, which is really nice. It's right here. You can tilt these up or down. I probably would set these much higher for me because I like a much more upright style, but that's really nice that you have that feature. The seat is, a decent seat, I would say. It has a quick release, which is really nice. But if you're gonna go on long rides, you might wanna switch it out for maybe a more comfy seat. What do you think about the seat?
I would say it's on the more Spartan side of things. It's nice and wide, which is good, but not a lot of padding. It's not a big deal to replace these seats. You go to wherever, your local bike shop, Walmart, get something nice.
And it's funny, we just saw a review online and he had a different seat. He had a handle on the seat and we don't. So it,
Sad.
I don't know if they put different seats on different days of the week, and who knows. All right, so this is a class 2 bike. It tops out at 20 miles an hour, and I thought we could go into the app or something and unlock it, but I don't think, and comment down below if you find it, but we have not been able to find how to unlock this top speed. So I think you're stuck at 20 miles an hour. That could be a problem, and this is why I'm calling it a relaxed road bike. If there's those sections of road you get on and you want to keep up with traffic and go 28, you're not going to go 28 in this bike. It tops out at 20.
I mean, you can pedal it as fast as you want. It's still a bike, but the motor will only help you up to 20 miles an hour. Right. And I think that's to do with the class 2. It's a bit disappointing to me because this is going to kind of relegate it to much more bike-friendly areas, which is fine. I think that this is a great bike path bike.
Well, and I want to get into that for a second. So if you know about e-bikes, right, and then you know what you are, right, you know what kind of e-biker you are and what you're looking for, great. Premium relaxed road bike, that is what this is. If you don't know much about e-bikes, you're like, that sounds great, let me get it. And then you start going for bike rides and you're like, oh, you know, I'm commuting now and there's a stretch where I need to go 28, but this bike won't do it. Yeah. Then you're not going to feel very comfortable on your ride. So that's where maybe before you buy these bikes,
test them out.
Yeah, test them out. Think about what your bike, and it's hard, I'll be honest. Like, we've gone on bike rides and I've been like, oh, I didn't know how much I enjoyed riding off-road. You're not going to ride off-road on this, by the way. Just that's sure. Another piece of this. So if you're going to ride under some power lines or you know, in some gravel, maybe for a second, but not anything prolonged.
Right.
That's again why we're calling it relaxed. So if your ride is along a nice boardwalk along a beach or on a rail trail, perfect. Maybe even urban, but not urban like New York urban. I would say like relaxed urban, if there is such a thing.
Well, and here's another point, is that because you don't have a throttle, that means that every time you come to a stop, you're gonna have to downshift, because even in level 5 pedal assist, your legs simply aren't moving fast enough to propel yourself off the line, so to speak. And that's where a thumb throttle comes in really handy.
There is no thumb throttle on this bike.
Right. Most mid-drives don't have the thumb throttle.
Right.
You usually have to go for hub motor. And so that's just something to think about. If you really want the mid-drive experience and you want to be getting your exercise and all sorts of stuff like that, because in level 1, this bike gives you great exercise. I think that you're going to be doing a majority of the work. It's just that when you get to hills, if you're going long distance, it's going to make the whole biking experience, just bring that impact a little bit lower and let you go for miles and miles and miles, which is great. But you could save a whole bunch of money by switching to a hub drive motor with, you know, 750 watts or 1,000 watts, a bigger battery. You probably won't get the same range. Right. It'll probably be worse, and you'll get the thumb throttle and all that kind of thing.
And Vanpowers offers that in the lower versions of this bike.
Right. So it's something to consider. This is it's premium in the sense that you're also going to have to find some premium places to take it, which means you're going to need the premium and the luxury of putting it on a bike rack and taking it somewhere, unless you happen to live somewhere very premium where you get to ride this thing around safely.
Really good point about shifting gears, because when I ride, my style is I don't really want to think about gears too much. But you're right, with this bike, you will have to think about that. Oh, I'm coming up to a stoplight, I've got to downshift now. If you're okay with that, this is great. The color display screen is really nice. It's a horizontal one. It shows you all these cool features. Let's talk about what you see. So you get the battery level in 2 different ways. So you get to see a little battery with the percentage, or you get to see it in bars. I don't know why they did it that way, but that's cool.
Right, so it's like 3 ways to see it.
Right, then they do the speed in 2 different ways. You get kind of a what's that called?
Like a speedometer.
Speedometer.
You know, it fills up this round bar, which is nice. And then it also gives it to you in actual discrete digital numbers.
You get your power displayed, you get your odometer, and then you can also see your average speed, your max speed, what time it is, how many calories you're burned, and how much time your trip has been. So those are some cool ways. And then let's get to the app. You can Bluetooth this into your app. Tells you about the same kind of things, but that might be nice for you later to be able to go back and like look at your trip. If you push the plus and minus buttons at the same time, you open up the settings, and there's some cool things in there. One is a password. So you can put a password on this bike if you want to just make it, you know, so that no one can steal it as easily. They still could throw it in a truck, but they couldn't ride away. And you can change the backlight brightness settings along with a couple other simple things. All right, so that kind of wraps it up. One thing I do want to point out is that there's no brake cut sensors. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so on most e-bikes, again, because they're usually hub motor and you have a thumb throttle, when you press the brakes, it overrides everything and it says no more motor, cuts that off. With this bike, you don't have that. So it's a bit of a safety concern, but the reason that they did that is because sometimes you want to blend, you know, some braking,
a little bit of braking
with some power. And it would be weird if you were like pedaling and you hit a little bit of brake and then all of a sudden the motor cuts out and you slow down a lot faster than you were expecting.
Gotcha. All right, and then we arrive back at the price, $24.99. I think for what you're getting, the price is right. The price is right. I think that, you know, for mid-motor, and that's the other part, it's hard in a video to explain to you what mid-motor feels like. I would say that some of the latest bikes that we've been reviewing that have torque sensing and their hub motors feel almost like a mid-motor. It used to not be that way. It used to feel this was like, you had to get mid-motor if you wanted that buttery smooth European bike feel. But it does have that feel. So if that's what you're going for, this is probably the price range. I mean, you're kind of lucky actually that you can get a bike in this price range that has that.
Right, I mean, you have the torque sensing, but you also have the mid-motor. The mid-motor, again, gives you the efficiency. There's a huge amount of efficiency in not having that rear hub.
No, I mean, 70 miles. Can I just talk about that one for one more second?
Yeah.
You know, we've done some 40, 45 mile bike trips.
Yeah.
And those are long bike trips. They just physically take you a long amount of time to do. So I don't have any 70 miles. Like, you're not gonna have any problems, like, unless you're, I don't know, trying to do Tour de France or something.
Yeah.
70 miles is gonna be great.
And that can make it a great commuter and everything like that. The bike feels great. It has quality componentry. That's a huge plus. I mean, we've seen the typical 7-speed Shimano shifter on a lot of e-bikes, and I just think that they did a really good job with the 9-speed.
Yeah, it's a micro shift, and it's just a very nice, smooth feeling. And having the bike rack come with it as well, a 25 kilogram max load, just nice to be able to put pannier bags and other things in the back. It's so different than a road bike, the typical road bike, where if you put any weight on it at all, now it feels heavier. Because they're so heavy to begin with, you can throw a big bag on the back and fill it with stuff, and you're not gonna really feel the difference.
Again, let's come back to price, the $2,500. It depends on what you're looking for. If you wanted a mid-drive motor, this is a really good option.
And the build quality is great.
Yeah.
So if that fits your budget and these are the kind of features you want, then great. Just be aware of mainly the top speed. That, to me, the 20 miles an hour, is lower than I need in certain places.
Right.
But honestly, for 95% of our rides, I don't go any faster than that.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let us know down in the comments if there's something you'd like us to review or questions that you have, because we're here for you. Don't forget, we also do EV chargers, we do composters, we do everything that's sustainable and electric. So we'll see you next time.
Now let's review.